What's going on, guys? Happy Tuesday.
Happy Victory
Man,
Tuesday.
what a fantastic Tuesday it is here at Pick Six Sports and all across Cowboys Nation. I'm Stevie J. We got Camber with us, of course. Of course, the video's pointed the opposite direction. So as I pointed her, my finger went the other way. You all noticed it. I pointed it out. It's okay. So here's how it goes. Be sure to like and subscribe. We appreciate you guys for tuning in for some midday due diligence following a Cowboys 23-16 win over the New York Football Giants. And Camber,
following a Cowboys
Oh,
23 to
guess we don't need that going, huh? I was trying to get in the chat on my phone so I can talk to
no
everybody.
one wants to hear that guy. No one wants to listen to that guy talk. All right. So let's get it going, Camber. We're going to jump right into this. And the first thing that we have on the agenda, we're going to play some good, the bad, and then the win. All right. So as we get this thing kicked off here today, there's plenty of good to talk about. I mean, even after that Bengals win, I feel like there's probably more good from this game to discuss than in the previous week's victory over the Bengals. So what do you have down as the good?
Our run defense, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Well, except for that pesky Danny Dimes up the middle. But
And the one, remember last week, whenever we were breaking down how you win against the Giants, it was pretty much stop the one Saquon Barkley burst. He got his burst,
he
but
did.
outside of that and the Danny Dimes first downs, there was nothing happening for him. You're right.
Right. So that definitely was. And then let's go to the other side of the ball. The run game. We established a run game, and it did well.
Yeah, and I think that's going to get brought up a little bit later when we talk about the change in offensive play calling with Cooper Rush as the quarterback. But right now, yeah, absolutely. The run game, you saw a very good mixture of Zeke and Tony Pollard. I thought that some of the play calling in regard to the run game was outstanding. Kellen Moore, stand up, baby.
Right.
Kellen Moore getting his flowers today after having such a rough offseason. I'm telling you, people were down in the dumps on him. But, he's working with Cooper Rush, and he's working with arguably your fourth best left guard on this team at this point in time, and Matt Farniok. But all in all, I got to agree with you. The run game was absolutely stellar.
Yes. Yeah. And we can get further into that, but I did notice the first time that Jason Peters came in at left guard.
First.
It worked.
It did.
It worked.
And that was the concern, dude, 20 years at left tackle. Now you're going to try him at a new position. And there are nuances to, playing the offensive line from this position to that position. You can't just shuffle guys left and right. And I still believe that. But a veteran like Jason Peters, he went in there and had a key block that sprung Tony Pollard for a long gainer.
Right.
So along with that, let me tell you some of the good I had on here. All right. Okay. Some of my notes, guys stepping up. Parsons is sick. They give him a lot of attention. He still had a good game. He still put a lot of pressure on Danny Dimes, but DeMarcus Lawrence really stepped up, had arguably his best game of his career. Think about that. DeMarcus Lawrence, who a lot of people, some feel, all right, yeah, you're a well-rounded guy, but maybe more a little bit in the run game is where his bread is made. And that's not today's NFL. He's not worth the money. You hear all these people talking about DeMarcus Lawrence. 9 pressures from DeMarcus Lawrence, and you come up with 3 sacks as well. I mean, that's about as good as it gets from D-Law. So very, very happy to see him step up. Noah Brown.
Even getting a little foot tweak, little something went on with his foot there for a little bit. He wasn't even on the field the whole time.
Yeah, and that's I don't know what's going on there. He came back though, didn't he? He came back. And that, because trust me, I would have been very perturbed if you get that kind of game out of DeMarcus Lawrence and then he misses time after seemingly stumping a toe. Like, that would have been very upsetting
Right.
to me if D-Law is out because he stubbed his toe. Like I
Right.
wouldn't have been able to hold back the jokes. I wouldn't have been able to. But alas, he got back in the game. He continued wrecking shop. D-Law, we appreciate you, man. We love you here in Cowboys Nation. And we are so glad that you stepped up while Parsons got all that attention. Man, Evan Neal struggled.
Ooh.
Evan Neal struggled.
He didn't have a good day. It was a very bad day for. I mean, I started questioning. I kept hearing this guy was the real deal, and he wasn't it yesterday.
Hey, but you know what? It's just more ammo for my whole idea that you can't put a guy on one side, draft him, and then put him on the other side. Where did Evan Neal play in college? Left tackle? That's right. Where'd they have him yesterday? Right tackle?
Right tackle.
Oh, and he's not as good? I'm baffled. I'm stunned. I can't believe it.
Clearly shocked.
So Noah Brown steps up. He stepped up last week as well. But whenever things were not exactly going great, all right, you had CD dropping passes. You're down Dalton Schultz. You don't really have another receiver in there. Of course, you're working with rookies like Ferguson and Hendershot, even though those guys stepped up in their respects. You had Noah Brown come up and make clutch plays. And I'm talking about, I don't know if people really realize how tough that deep out was. I don't recall exactly where it was in the game. I know it was a third down. All right. But he extended and caught that ball on the tips of his fingers. I mean, he barely reeled that bad boy in. And I'm very thankful for Noah Brown here on a Tuesday morning.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. What do we have him at? 5 for 54 yards, averaging 10.8 each one. As long as that, I think the one you're referring to is his long one of 19. Just absolutely fantastic game out of him. From going from someone who probably is more the Simi Fehoko role now, where we might get one catch out of him, and he might be out there to block or do something like that, to really stepping up. Having Gallup back, that's going to be a nice trio with the three of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to remember James Washington is on his way as well. And then suddenly you're going to be looking at Noah Brown and you're going to be thinking, hey, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. We'll see what James Washington brings. A lot of people feel that's more of a scheme fit type of offseason move that they made with James Washington. But now you factor in how reliable Noah Brown has been. And do you have depth at wide receiver all of a sudden? You may not have that star power, that top tier level of play that Amari Cooper brought to the table, but you've got some versatile guys.
No, totally agree. And even Simi got himself a snag there on a very important play. Yeah. So
absolutely. And that just goes to guys stepping up. I mean, we also get into the rookie tight ends. Dorrance Armstrong, as he continues taking over that role vacated by Randy Gregory in the offseason. Look, Randy Gregory is having a good time in Denver. He's playing well. I don't know that I could say that he's playing as well as Dorrance is right now. And that's not saying, you get into the discussion of who's better overall. I would still say Randy Gregory is the better player overall, but who's producing more at this point in time? I would think that Dorrance Armstrong is giving us a performance and an effort that we can be extremely pleased with here in Cowboys Nation. And then Donovan Wilson, it's kind of like deja vu all over again. You remember Donovan Wilson goes down earlier in the season last year, and Jaron Kearse is the guy who comes in and plays lights out. Now Jaron Kearse goes down, and Donovan Wilson, I don't know if I would say he's playing lights out. There's been a missed tackle or two here and there, but he's making such an impact and coming up with these big plays left and right that the good is far outweighing a missed tackle in the game.
Right. And that penalty on him was junk. He had no idea that
Yeah.
ref was behind him. And
Oh,
so
I
he thought
agree.
he thought he was throwing the ball at him, and he just batted it down. It was bad, so bad.
Yeah, and I think that's going to have to be kind of a self-awareness thing, not getting caught up in the moment. I think the official is being a little bit sensitive there, which, they were a little easier on the trigger against Dallas than they were the other way. I mean, I think we all saw that.
Oh yeah.
But at the end of the day, you be more like passive aggressive than aggressive. Watch the ball fly by you and then give the guy a look. You can do things to kind of get in the opponent's head. You can do
Right.
things to kind of give them the metaphorical finger, if you will. Man, just wrong place, wrong time, wrong action in front of the wrong guy, and I think that's where Donovan Wilson's penalty came from. But at the end of the day, man, he is making a difference for the Dallas Cowboys defense.
Absolutely. And we can go through. I mean, talk about Osa and Bohanna and Van Der Esch. We can and Anthony Brown. I mean, we can go down this list, and and I said this in the space last night. You know what's amazing about it is that we're talking positive about our defense, and not only just our starters, but the depth that we have also in it.
Yeah, and we're going to get to the depth of the defense pretty quickly here. Let's get through the good, the bad, the win. We've had so much good to talk about that we've kind of gotten stuck on it here already. I mean, 10 minutes talking about the good of this game.
Right.
And usually, I think if you were looking at week 1 or even week 2, where kind of you still have these lingering concerns for the Dallas Cowboys, you may be anxious to get to the bad. But here, I mean, I've got a couple of things, but nothing that's really all that serious. There may be one thing that is a legitimate concern, but for the bad, I still have discipline is still a bit of an issue. The late hit on Sam Williams, Hendershot not getting out of bounds on that final drive, and then of course CD lamb drops. I mean, people say they like lamb chops. Well, I don't like lamb drops. Get them out of my fridge. They're not going to be in this house, okay? Luckily, he was able to make up for it. But to me, it's still an issue, all right? Because the next time it happens, we're not going to remember him making up for it. We're going to remember how he dropped it the last time and the time before that and the time before that. So my bad is discipline, man. And I don't know if it's a focus thing. I don't know if it's a nerves. If it's confidence. I don't know. But Sam Williams has been a little bit,
He's a liability with these penalties, and they're not, and it's not like penalties of nerves. It's penalties of attitude. I mean, stomping on the guy's face mask in preseason. That's just, you can't tell me that he didn't realize it was a late hit going out like that. He's got to tighten up.
He does. And I guess if I can spin it into a good thing is you'll always hear a coach say that you would rather have to reel a guy in than have to ramp him up. You would rather have to bring a really, really aggressive guy back down a little bit than get some ho-hum guy and you got to, get him up to play. And you're like, dude, come on. Can you please show a little bit of aggressiveness out there? You would rather have that, but you're absolutely right. Maybe it's, he coming out of college, there was a lot about his attitude and some of the, I don't want to say anger. I don't want to put like anger issues on the guy or anything of that nature, but the attitude, the short temper, the stomping on a guy's helmet. The late hit ended up looking a lot closer on the replay than it initially seemed in real time. But you have to be smarter than that. You still have to understand the situation and know that quarterback is headed out of bounds. Maybe you can, it being a quarterback, wrap him up and make sure he's taken out of bounds and then let him go.
Right.
That sort of thing. I mean, and I get it, man.
especially on their side of the field.
And you're a defender. You want to pop the quarterback. You always want to pop the quarterback, but you just got to be smart. And same thing applies to Hendershot on that not going out of bounds. That would be a significantly bigger story if something breaks down on the defense and the Giants end up scoring and going into overtime or worse. So it's not being discussed today because of how briefly lived of an issue it was for Hendershot, but that's something I think he had a penalty in there as well. I thought his good outweighed the bad as well.
Yes. Yeah.
But because the circumstances kind of buried his bad a little bit.
Yeah. My bad is Forniak. That penalty on that opening drive was a killer. I mean, it killed it. And he had some struggles. Now, I do have to say, I mean, it was great to see that they never allowed one sack. That offensive line never allowed one sack. So positive on that. But that just took the air out of you at first to have that penalty do that. Where with Hendershot, because he had two of them, and I want to believe that's more that rookie nerves kind of thing. I guess I'm going to give him a little bit more grace than I am Matt on this one.
I'm with you. Hendershot's going to end up being a player. All right. I mean, we all know he probably would have been drafted. He probably would have been a 4th or 5th round guy, if not for some really stupid things that he did in his time at Indiana. But similar to Cavante Turpin, they were in a similar boat together. But now that he's here, there's we've had this discussion a million times because there's a million of the situations that go on in the NFL, unfortunately. But he seemed to be contrite in the changing his ways, and so now that he's here, you're glad he's making plays. All right. You're glad that Hendershot is out there making catches. And Ferguson is a tremendous blocker. And, you guys were talking about this in the preseason, Camber. I know you, I know Massey. Mm-hmm. I mean, you guys were really in. I'm always the more conservative with the rookies. I'm always like, yeah, that's great. They did that against practice squatters and third stringers in preseason games, but I cannot put stock in it until it happens in the regular season, and it's happening in the regular season. I mean, Jake Ferguson, I think, is already your best blocking tight end on this team, and I don't know if it's even close.
Oh, easily. I mean, you could see him, and he was coming out there, and he was blocking that edge and letting Zeke get by. It makes my heart happy that we have blocking tight ends. And yes, Ferguson is the better one of the two, but there's still Hendershot. He moved Thibodeau. Like, he had no chance against him. I mean, he took care of him. And wasn't it am I wrong? Wasn't it Thibodeau? No.
Did he play?
Yes. Yeah, it was Thibodeau. Don't make me
I didn't notice him in the game.
Number 5. Yeah, because the poor guy, one of the very first series or something like that, he had to go against Zach Martin and found out that wasn't going to work very well. But he Hendershot moved him like it was nothing. So we've got two really good blocking tight ends. Man, and like Mass just said, I'm not paying Schultz next year. If what we saw last night continues on, you know what, Dalton Schultz, you take as much time as you need to heal right now. We're good.
Oh, I mean, we're paying him now. I want him out there.
Yeah.
I want him healthy and I want him out there. We're paying him, but at the end of the day,
can he block more?
I see. He's so inconsistent. He can do it. It's just the consistency that I have a problem with. And sometimes you get Dalton Schultz out there in space and it's wiffle ball. I mean, it's just like the guy can't even get close. And then there's other times and you see that he's actually really helping your run game. But he's too inconsistent. All right, Dalton Schultz as a blocker is too inconsistent. Now, as a zone beater, there are few better in the league right now. I mean, that guy, he knows. I don't know if he learned that from the final end of Jason Witten's era. I don't know, but he is a fantastic zone pass catcher. But the blocking does leave something to be desired. Sometimes it's up to par, up to snuff. Other times it's not. And fortunately, we've seen good consistency out of Jake Ferguson as a blocker. And even when they've run plays that are already on tape. I mean, I got so excited last night on a Tony Pollard 9-yard run because it was the exact same play that they had ran the week before that sprung Pollard for 17 or 19 or whatever it was. And I was like, that's the play. That's the one. You know, he goes over, he helps his right tackle with a chip and then turns and seals the lane. And it's beautifully done. Meanwhile, Tyler Smith, Farniak, they're pulling over to the right side. It's a gorgeous run design. And I got to say, speaking of gorgeous run designs, I thought Kellen Moore, for one, called his best game up to this point, which it's only week 3.
Right.
But that toss on 4th down was brilliant. I mean, It was the perfect call.
Right. Well, and to top it off, and I'm hoping I'm going to give Mike McCarthy this. We were kind of a little questionable if we made that on that 4th. And what they do, they just got in there and got that next play where previous coaches or whatever would have kind of stood around like, oh, yeah, we got it, to give them time to maybe go out and measure it. And did not give them a chance. Boom. Got that next play off. We're good.
Yeah, and I tell you, man, when it comes to Kellen Moore's play calling, which how far away are we from, let's see where we're at as far as we're at depth of defense, CD's redemption, stars up, stars down. All right, we got a little ways to go, but we're going to get to the play calling momentarily, all right? But right now, this defense and its depth has been really the saving grace of this team through 3 weeks.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And the depth of it, the way that this entire defense is gelling together, I want to say, did we only have 2 defensive penalties? The Sam Williams and then the Kelvin Joseph. You leave people's face masks alone. That was just dumb.
He did have a good play. On a series, maybe it was the series before. I don't remember exactly. He made, and again, we talked about some of the inconsistencies of some guys out there. Some of these younger guys that are on this team. You had him come out and make a good play. Had good coverage. It forced an errant throw, and he was there to break it up or help break it up. So you have the good, and then the face mask. You have the bad.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Kelvin Joseph, and again, it kind of goes back to with Jason Garrett under his regime, it was our type of guy. You know, it was the Boy Scout. That's who they wanted. And now it's like, you know, I guess the dog is the popular thing to be saying now. We want guys with a little dog in them. But these guys like Kelvin Joseph, Hendershot, you look at Sam Williams, we're kind of dealing with the same thing where they're rough. They're rugged. I mean, they do have that in them. But again, and Joseph he's a situation all on his own. You know what I mean? He's got the other stuff going on. But whenever it comes to these guys like Hendershot and like Sam Williams, Kelvin Joseph, at least they're ramped up. At least they're fired up, and you got to reel them back a little bit or just teach them a little bit more. Again, I'd rather have that than I think Joseph is that other guy, though, that you kind of have to like, hey, man, focus on football. Get in here. Get in the game. Get your head. And that's the difference between Williams, Hendershot, and a guy like Kelvin Joseph.
Yeah. But no, if we go down this entire, like I mentioned earlier, you look at every single starter. I have something positive to say about every single starter on this defense in this game.
Yeah.
I mean, I could give each one of them a star all the way down. Now, Van Der Esch didn't have as big and as flashy as a game as he did last week, but he still was over there pushing this edge to make the play happen that way. It by no means was an awful game for him. It wasn't strong like last week's, but he still was out there on his assignments. Anthony Barr did have that one, had a penalty. So there's our third defensive penalty.
And Anthony Barr missed a tackle in the hole on Saquon's touchdown run.
Exactly. And that was where I was going to get is, yes, he had that one really bad. But then beyond that, he had some really, really great plays. But if you go down the line, we've already talked about Tank, Osa, Bohanna. Big Bo had himself a game. That was great. Dante Fowler, he had some good plays in there also. And I mean, I really love our defense. It makes me happy.
They're getting a ton of pressure. I mean, we talked about Tank, 9 pressures on his own. I mean, if you got 9 pressures in a game as a team, you'd be like, all right, we got to the quarterback a little bit. We were able to make him uncomfortable. One player, one guy getting 9 pressures.
Well, we have 35, 36 pressures.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they set an NFL record for, since they've been keeping the stat, since they've been keeping the marker, because I know that Micah had 6 pressures. And that's the funny thing is Micah didn't play the type of game that people expect him to in the box score. But in just watching the game, he had a really, really fantastic game. I mean, you're going to see 1 tackle. And it looks ugly in the box score. It looks entirely empty. But then you see him running over offensive linemen. You see him getting double and triple teamed. And you see how guys are able to feed off of that, like DeMarcus Lawrence, like a Dorrance Armstrong. You see how guys are able to play off of that. And teams are going to have to make a decision. Okay, we can't let this one guy wreck our entire ball game. But whenever we put our focus entirely on him, whenever we look at Micah Parsons and we do double team him, triple team him, put a tight end over there, send a chip that way. When they do those things, there's someone else to completely ruin your night like DeMarcus Lawrence. And so teams, they're going to have to figure out how to play this Dallas Cowboys defense. And I think that they're too deep for teams to figure it out.
Yeah, I've got some numbers here. It's Tank, 9 pressures, 6 hurries, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. The Cowboys total 35 pressures and pressured Danny on 83% of his dropbacks.
Well, and that's where I was going is you said 35 pressures and he had 37 pass attempts. Okay. Now, and that's letting the ball go, letting it fly. That's not including your sacks. That's not including, when he takes off and runs for those first downs, which was kind of the only bugaboo of the night for the Dallas Cowboys outside of officiating. I mean, to be honest, not to sound like that kind of, Cowboy fan or content creator to blame the refs, even though they were bad. I mean,
they were horrible.
They were bad. There's no way you can look at how Noah Brown got treated more than once in that game and say anything other. But also, I feel like this Dallas Cowboys team, unlike ones in the past, were able to overcome that. They didn't hang their head. They didn't feel like the world was against them. Right. I mean, Camber, teams of the past that didn't have that penalty go their way, that were getting held relentlessly, that had a quarterback missing, that had their left tackle missing, that were on a backup left guard, that didn't have the wide receivers. That was a guaranteed L under the Garrett regime. That was a guaranteed L.
Absolutely. Yeah, they just would have just been mopey, sad over on the sidelines. It, it's just, I have been very critical of um, MM a lot, a
Same.
lot. I mean, I am the first one to admit it. And I think that this was probably one of his best coach games. Dealing with what he had to, with the people that are out. You've got Schultz out, you've got Gallup out, you have Dak out. Just the situation, the way that things were played and called. I really don't have many things to question whatsoever. Maybe that. What was it? It was like 6 minutes to go, and we passed it on 3-and-1 instead of letting Zeke run the ball. But I mean, at 6 minutes, are you worried about running the clock out still with the way your defense is playing? I mean, that's a pretty little ticky-tacky thing for me to bring up. But that's what I have this week.
Well, he was never put in a position where he had to manage the clock, really. So
Right,
there's
right.
also that.
Yeah.
So I agree. And really the only thing that hurt last night was the CD drop. I mean, outside of that, there's really nothing in here that I could really sit up and be like, you know what, man, this is something we have got to address, because they responded in every single way. And CD responded. He did get his redemption. And I knew that on that 1st and goal, the one-on-one bottom of the screen, he just had the big play to get him down there. And remember, when Tony Pollard last week broke the 47-yard run, got him down to the 1-yard line, what was the next play call? They gave it right back to Tony Pollard. They were like, big man, you got us down here. You set us up. You finish it off. They did the exact same thing for CD Lamb. Now, I think it was a little more necessary for CD Lamb, because this could be a turning point for him. And I mean, you talk about sensitive situations. You talk about very fragile situations. All right. So a guy like CD Lamb, who we're already kind of like, coming into the season, we were like, yes, he can be the number one. We were very certain. We were very sure that he could be. We just wanted him to have some help. That's all we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But Noah Brown has consistently been good help, while CD Lamb has not consistently showed his number one status. And when he dropped that ball and then had the drop, which won't go down as a drop, by the way, in the stat book, because it was a deflected ball. It just happened to hit him right in the hands. But by the definition of the statistic, once it's tipped, it's no longer going to be a drop. But it's still one he should have come up with to help his team.
Right.
And at that point, I couldn't help but wonder, is this a time when this guy could really spiral downward? And then he comes up with the big play to set him up inside the 5-yard line, and then the one-handed grab in the corner of the end zone. And now suddenly that thinking shifts to, could that series of plays be something that sets CD Lamb up mentally to now take over as a wide receiver one and have that confidence? And look, here's something that drives me crazy, Camber. When a ho-hum wide receiver, maybe he's a wide receiver 2 on some team, and he's like, I'm the best player in the league. I think I'm the best pass catcher in the league. I don't mind any guy who says that, because that is required when you play at this level. That mentality is required when you play at this level. And I would like to see CD Lamb have a little bit more arrogance in his play. I don't think that he's really an arrogant guy. I mean, you hear his interviews and he's very smiley, very polite, but you know what? I liked after the catch, he got up and flexed a little bit.
Right. I like when he does.
Yeah. I mean, his little signature thing,
yeah.
but I'm talking about a guy who can turn into a little bit of a bully, a guy who will look down on a defender a little bit. Because also that deep ball from Cooper Rush, a little bit underthrown, and he tries to catch it over his shoulder. Now, what you need from your wide receiver one, and especially a guy as athletic as CeeDee Lamb, is to set yourself up to go up and fight for that ball. Don't wait on it to, come down. Yeah, it would have fit right in the breadbasket, but man, attack. We need
Right.
CeeDee Lamb to be in attack mode. And so when he caught that touchdown pass in the corner of the end zone, I'm thinking maybe that kind of leads him down that path.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, I think it could be very pivotal for him that to go from that low back up to that high. And then I need him to remember that low and how he felt in that moment. One of the things I do have to address, Cowboys Nation, is stop saying Noah Brown is our wide receiver one. Because I'm telling you right now, that catch in the end zone, that one-hand catch in the end zone, that catch in against the Vikings last year laid out, Noah Brown's not doing those.
No.
There is a different skill set. And Noah Brown, who is coming along nicely, and we love what he's doing, he doesn't have that skill set. So we need to stop with the CD's wide receiver 2 and Noah Brown's wide receiver 1. I need that to happen.
Yeah, and you can't judge these things based off the box score. Because right now, Noah Brown, as far as numbers go, he'd be right there with CeeDee Lamb as wide receiver 1, right, in terms of just statistics. But reverse the roles, reverse the coverages, the attention, the brackets, those types of things, and you won't hear from Noah Brown ever again for the rest of the season. Okay, so that's the type of thing that you're looking at when it comes to wide receiver 1 versus wide receiver 2. And also no Dalton Schultz out there to help with some of those underneath linebackers, over the top safeties, those types of situations. So I'm with you. I haven't really seen many people say that. So I
unfortunately have.
See, I haven't, but I also hadn't really seen up until this morning people talking about the Cooper Rush, Dak Prescott type of thing. I haven't seen those types of things being said up until this morning, and now I'm like, 215 yards and 1 touchdown is going to supplant Dak Prescott. Like, give me a freaking break. Like, that's not a thing. Just like, 1 game of 90 yards and a touchdown shouldn't supplant CeeDee Lamb as wide receiver 1. And again, we're thankful for Noah Brown. We're grateful that he's stepping up and really being a consistent wide receiver 2 until Michael Gallup gets back. And then he goes to wide receiver 3. And then James Washington gets back, and he might even end up as wide receiver 4 by the end of October.
Yeah. No, your timeline must have been much happier than mine. But I was
pretty happy.
I did have to put out a tweet telling everybody that if they wanted to give their formal apologies to Mr. Cedarian Dillon Lamb, it was now. Because people were mean. They weren't going to give that kid a chance. And I understand it. It's a problem with the drops. But we need to be a bit nicer, Cowboys Nation. We already chased off Diggs off the platform, off the app.
That wasn't us.
It
wasn't Cowboys.
We helped. We helped.
I'm sure there's some out there, but that was the PFF zombies.
Yeah.
But as far as CD goes, look, I'm glad he came up, but I'm interested now in the response. I'm interested now in what happens next with CeeDee Lamb. Are we going to get more of the same where it's peak and valley, or are we going to see the guy who we always thought could play at a very high level consistently? So we'll just have to see how that kind of goes.
I also wonder if it's been weird for him not having Coop there. You have to think about it. Since the day he became a Cowboy, he had Amari Cooper right there. And Amari, if you watch the two of them, he had Amari on the sidelines. They were talking about routes, doing everything. And now he's navigating this thing, and everything got put on his shoulders. Gallup's out. We're playing. We don't know who's going to be your 2, 3, 4 down the road. So hopefully this was Sedarian's moment.
All right. Star up, star down. What you got?
I am gonna give my star, and I had quite a few that I was going. I was thinking I was gonna give it to CD for the redemption and this and that, but I'm gonna give it to one Mr. Cooper Rush. Good job, fantastic job. He did it without me there. Good job, buddy. I didn't have to be in the house, but no, Cooper Rush. There was a couple of throws. He underthrew that one to CD. That one to Tolbert was overthrown. But on the whole, I have no complaints. He did fantastic. Got the ball off quickly, which I think was part of the scheme to make this work this week, is that quick release. And good job, Cooper.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially against a guy like Wink Martindale, who is going to bring pressure constantly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this was as much a game that fit Cooper Rush's abilities, because you know the narrative.
Right.
Not great physical tools. He's not gonna really just rifle it in there. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Dak Prescott with the arm, but he's smart. And smart guys can beat blitzes. I mean, we look at Dak Prescott, best in the NFL against the blitz, right? So when you're Wink Martindale and you look, they've got a backup running back or backup quarterback in. The narrative that they could still have a shaky offensive line hasn't necessarily gone away, because you still have Matt Farniok, arguably your, again, fourth best left guard on the team.
Right.
Then you have Terrence Steele. Jury's still out on him, even though he turned in another good game. Going into this game, the jury is still out on him. So if you're Wink Martindale, you got Azeez Ojulari back. You got Kayvon Thibodeau back. I mean, you're talking about licking chops, looking to have a great game against a Cooper Rush, and all he does is beat your blitzes. All he does. Zeke is picking them up, having a fantastic night, not just running the football, but also in the blocking game as well. Where have we heard that before? All the time.
Right.
I mean, if Zeke's been consistent at anything, his pass pro has been nonstop excellent. And then you get, the short, very thin wide receiver group. Tight end one is out. I bet Wink Martindale thought that they were going to go wreck this day for Cooper Rush. And it was not allowed, whether it was Zeke, Jake Ferguson as the blocking tight end. The offensive line held up. Cooper Rush did a fantastic job of doing his part. And he does his part without trying to do too much. And I think that's why he's successful.
No, totally agree. Absolutely agree. So, are we doing
my star up?
I was going to say, I need your star up, because I'm having a hard time with my star down.
I had Rush in there as well, but I've also got Osa Odigizua. I mean, you talk about an underrated kind of game, just a quiet. As a matter of fact, I think on a run stop, you probably saw him flash, and then getting suplexed by the left guard there towards the end of the game on like the only holding call that Dallas got all night. Those are the only times when he really flashed. But man, he played well in the nuances of the game. Osa Odigizua, and absolutely this guy too.
Yeah. Big Bo. He had a great game.
Remember, Neville Gallimore put on 10 pounds. He was supposed to be the one tech. He was supposed to be that guy that comes in and helps stop the run. And we kind of figured that Osa Odigizua was the guy, of all the defensive tackles. He was the one that we were like, we know he's going to be starting. And we figured Neville would be the other one. But Quentin Bohanna had such a fantastic summer and had such a fantastic camp. I mean, Micah Parsons was raving about him. And he's not just going to say that about anyone for just any reason. And it's showed up. I mean, You talk about some of these defensive linemen that they've asked to step up, Osa, Bohanna, and Armstrong. And all three of those guys had an outstanding game.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Totally agree with that.
Said you had trouble with your star down?
I do. I do. I mean, my obvious one would be to talk about the penalties, that kind of thing. The next one I wanted to give, and I don't know if it's fair. Tyler Biotish struggled in places, but at the same time, he's across from Dexter Lawrence, and Dexter Lawrence had a pretty good
He's a good
game.
player.
He's a good player. So I don't know if I could say that. Farniak is, what, like you said, our fourth best guard. It's hard to get on him. So my stars down goes to the refs, y'all.
It was bad.
At what point in time, when it's not one man mugging Noah Brown in the end zone, it's two of them, and there's no flag? I could keep going, but my understanding is that they actually, after the game, go through the missed calls that they had. I hope they were there till 1 or 2 in the morning, having to go through all their bad calls, because it was bad.
Yeah, and look, I can forgive missed holding call.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just because of the frequency in which it happens, the
Right.
old adage, you could call holding on every play in football, blah, blah, blah. But the stuff against Noah Brown, like, you can't, okay, once, again, it's kind of like, oh, all right, man, you missed a call. You didn't see it. I don't know how you didn't see it. You're supposed to be right there looking at it. But twice is weird.
Right.
Like twice is uncomfortably what is going on here, especially the egregiousness of it. And so and then they call, like, yeah, absolutely. They call some of the ticky-tack stuff. I think it was one of the holding calls. It might have been on Ferguson or Hendershot.
Oh, yes. Yes. I know. Yeah, it was on Hendershot, and it wasn't. Now, the one that everybody kind of was like, oh, not the Shepherd hit on Diggs. Mass brought this up, and I completely agree with him.
Yeah.
You know what? If you don't see the guy, there was no reason, once you're at that point, to go and jump up and go in.
Yeah, I didn't buy that for a second.
Not at all.
Like, he didn't see him, just two guys running into each other. Then why'd you leave your feet?
Right.
Why is your shoulder ahead of the rest of your body? Like, it
right.
You can't tell me. As a matter of fact, someone was this character blocked me immediately, but he says something to the effect like, well, he doesn't see Diggs there, and of course he has to brace himself for the hit. And I'm like, why would you have to brace yourself for a hit that you don't see? If you don't know it's coming, like, I'm sitting in my living room right now. I'm not going to brace for a train to hit me.
Right.
It makes no sense. Like, it just flies in the face of logic. And so, I thought that was finally a good call. But at the end of the day, man, there was just some. I'm pretty sure Michael Parsons is still being held.
Oh,
as we speak. They're not letting him
sure.
come back to Dallas. They're holding him.
Right.
All right. My star down. I got to go Sam Williams, just because there wasn't much impact in the game. And then you had the late hit on the quarterback. And even though this was kind of a borderline call, when they show the replay, he kind of hits him just as that foot is going down out of bounds, and the quarterback is a runner, and that whole thing. It's tricky, but also you've been hit with a roughing the passer in the preseason. You were hit with stomping on a player's helmet, which I'm surprised didn't warrant a suspension, to be honest.
Right.
And so he's just got to reel himself in. He's got to play a little more under control. And if he can do that, then eventually with the learning the technique, I mean, he's still a very raw player. I mean, when you see his pass rush, it's essentially, let me push my guy back into the quarterback, very, very simple football stuff, but he's really got to find a way to hone all of that and turn it into positives, because he's got the juice. I mean, he's got the go. He's got the muscle. I mean, I saw him run down Saquon Barkley from the backside once, and he was getting after it. But at the end of the day, Sam Williams, if he's going to contribute to this team as a rookie, again, you'd rather this than have to ramp a guy up, but he's going to have to dial it back a little bit.
Agree.
So next on the agenda, and this one is one that we've kind of had to, we brought up and had to, not yet. We've got that later on the show. There's been a little bit of talk about the change in offensive play calling the past 2 games. Is it a change in offensive play calling, or is it quarterbacking, or is it way defenses play you even? Why do the Dallas Cowboys seem like in these last 2 games they're able to be a little more consistent on offense and operate a little better on offense than they did week 1 against the Tampa Bay Bucks?
People might think I'm crazy because I'm going to say this, but 2 weeks ago, before the Bengals game, after the Tampa game, Mike McCarthy said he was going to be more involved in the offense and the offensive calling. And they had to plan a whole different plan than what they have for Dak and this offense, and do something that was right for Cooper Rush to be able to run this offense out there on the field. And I think we're seeing the results of it.
So for me, I think whenever you bring in a backup quarterback, we're talking about kind of Wink Martindale earlier. We're talking about Wink Martindale and how he was probably licking his chops. You got a down the depth chart guard. You got a backup quarterback. You got rookie tight ends. Meanwhile, they get their best pass rusher back in Azeez Ojulari, who didn't do anything. I was asking, did Kayvon Thibodeau even play? Did Azeez Ojulari even play? So
he was out there. Well, because he was one that was in some of the fighting that was going on. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, and
but beyond that, I mean, yes, they absolutely missed Leonard Williams.
Sure,
but they had everybody else back.
For me, whenever you're playing with a backup quarterback, you're going to approach the game a little bit differently. And if you're a defense, when another team is playing with a backup quarterback, you're going to defend them differently. So if Dak Prescott was in there, there's no question that Kellen Moore would be calling things that he's not going to call for Cooper Rush. Maybe on a 3rd and 1, they throw instead of the toss, or a 4th and 1, they throw instead of the toss to Pollard. Those types of things. I don't know if it's as in playbook. I don't think it's different plays. I think it's still the same playbook, just a different approach in the play calling that they're taking that helps to protect Cooper Rush. And not only that, but the defense. We know what the issue has been for the Dallas Cowboys is rush 4, drop 7. Those 4 are getting home, and there's nowhere to throw the ball because Kellen Moore is an expert in man beaters and not in zone beaters. And that's why a guy like Dalton Schultz is so valuable, because he is an expert in zone beaters. So I think whenever you're going up against a guy like Cooper Rush, maybe as a defensive coordinator, especially a Wink Martindale, you're thinking, I can put pressure on this guy and make him make a mistake. Whereas it's already been proven that Dak Prescott is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL at beating the zone, at beating blitzes. So I think that it's a combination of you play differently when your backup quarterback is in the game, you call the game differently when the backup quarterback is in the game, and a defense plays you differently when a backup quarterback is in the game.
Nope. Yeah. It wasn't any one thing.
Sure. Absolutely.
It was a culmination of things, but and yeah, they had to scheme for Schultz not being there, and there were just all the factors, all the little puzzle pieces came together quite well.
Right. And what's even more surprising is without Schultz, and even though Hendershot had moments, him and Ferguson combined weren't necessarily just, they didn't light the world on fire in the passing game. They were more so helping in the run game as blockers.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a thin wide receiving group, a backup quarterback, and 2 rookie tight ends, and you still get ran on for nearly 180, Wink Martindale did a poor job.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
we'll hail our guys and say that they did well, of course, but at the end of the day, we were down so much talent, and they got 2 of their best guys back, and they still couldn't do anything with it. I mean, I don't think they made the adjustments necessary.
No, not at all. Mass is talking about them using that quick passing game to help rush.
Well, yeah,
and it worked. It
absolutely.
worked. They didn't sack him once this entire game.
Well, and he knows exactly what to do against the blitz, and that's the thing. That's Cooper Rush's MO, is he's a really smart guy. I mean,
he also played for them twice.
He was in there.
They let him. I wonder how they feel that they actually had a really good backup quarterback, I guess, and let him go, and now he's with us.
I mean, they have a decent backup quarterback right now. Tyrod Taylor's.
Oh, that's right.
The journeyman backup quarterback of the
right.
NFL. Him,
right.
Now like Chase Daniels. You've got good backup play from the Giants. Just unfortunately, your starter and your backup play is we were talking to a Giants fan or a Giants content creator in a space yesterday with Knicks, and we were asking him, like, how much of a difference is there really in Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor? And they were like, we're going with Jones. It's his season, but we don't think that there's just a whole lot different between him and Tyrod. And I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
But with that, what do we have next on the agenda? All right. So player status updates.
So I was hoping that we would hear something more. Jerry Jones told us this morning that Gallup should be there on the field this weekend. I didn't hear anything about Dalton Schultz. And I think it might be too early for us to know if there really was anything, if anything, about Tank's foot. The only other thing I really think we had was Simi Fehoko did get a banged up shoulder, went into the locker room, came back into the game. But and then we did, hear about Dak getting his stitches out. They're now saying 2 more weeks and he could be in. I'm going to need to see him throw when they need to be sure, because if we're doing, but then does that put us at Eagles or Rams on our schedule?
Rams. Or if you're talking about 2 more weeks, was it 4 or 5? That if he misses the next 2 games, it's the Eagles. If he misses, if you're talking 2 weeks in terms of like literal days, he could play against the Rams.
So, I mean, who knows? Because it was after everything I saw this week with them talking about Gallup, and he's out there in full practice and and we, release Houston, he comes back, we get to sign him back into the practice squad. I thought that Gallup was coming back this weekend on limited snaps. I really did. I mean, everything they were doing was pointing to it. So I don't know what they're doing anymore.
Well, winning just buys you time with Dak Prescott.
Right.
if you're dropping games, then there's more urgency to get him back on the field. So thank goodness that they are now 2-1 and with the potential to go to 3-1 against Washington, because 3-1 really buys you time. I mean, you could probably even drop the games to the Rams and the Eagles. And even though that's not ideal, you're still 2-1 in the division with another shot at playing the Eagles down the road. So you really have some flexibility to allow this to heal properly. And luckily there's no ligament damage. It was just bone that had to, be fixed. And so it's not a situation like Russell Wilson had to deal with. And, they rushed him back and it was ugly. I mean,
that was awful.
Can't hold on to the ball.
I don't think he's been the same since.
He ain't been good.
No.
He ain't been good.
Did you Eli Manning say they should have spent that money on the punter and not on Wilson?
I'm just saying, I bet there's a bunch of Broncos players and fans who are like, let me off this ride. I'm done. But at the end of the day, I think that for Dak Prescott, I always found weird a season ago that they were so careful with injuries when it came to everyone but their stars. Everyone but Zeke had to play with the PCL. Dak had to come back early from the calf injury, and they didn't play well. Meanwhile, Neville Gallimore got all the time in the world, DeMarcus Lawrence, even though, he is a star, he got all the time in the world. They took their time bringing these guys back until it was Dak Prescott or Zeke. And I don't know if that's a call from up there.
Right.
I don't know. But it's funny that Dalton Schultz is dealing with the same type of injury Zeke was, and who was not on the field? Dalton Schultz wasn't on the field. So it's really a curious situation with how they're going to continue handling the situation with Dak Prescott. You need him back because 20 points, 22 points per game is not going to cut against the Eagles and against better competition.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it gets it done against the Rams either. So,
especially since that's an elite defense as well.
Yeah.
Now, the good thing is in this Washington game, I mean, I don't think that the Eagles edge defenders, I don't think their pass rush is as good as what showed up against Washington. 9 sacks, and it pretty much all came from their edge guys. Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, he had a couple of sacks as well. But Josh Sweat got in there. Hassan Reddick, he got in there as well. Now imagine a healthy Micah Parsons against whatever traffic cones they've put out there to protect Carson Wentz, and also Carson Wentz himself. Do you have any autograph memorabilia, Camber?
Oh yeah.
Do you just put it on like a little stand, like a little, here's the ball, just kind of sits there and stays there.
Right.
That's Carson Wentz in the pocket. He ain't getting rid of it. All right. Not for sale. Ain't going on eBay.
Right.
Okay. He's just going to hold that bad boy. And I don't look 12 sack game. I don't think that they do all that.
This offensive line is bad. It is not. No, you're talking Leno Jr., Norwell, Schweitzer, Trey Turner, and Sam Cosmi. It's bad. It's not a good offensive line.
It's really not.
It's not. It's really not. And those are their healthy starter. I mean, who they have? Did they have? Oh, they are on their third center, I believe. But
I don't feel bad for them.
No.
We're on our fourth guard. I mean, come on. Right. And granted, I say that kind of tongue in cheek because I'm, Connor McGovern got the first crack at it, got hurt just about immediately. And Tyler Smith is probably your best guard, but you need a tackle. Mm-hmm. And Peters, dude, he looked good.
You look great.
Limited reps, very limited. I think it was like 14 snaps total.
Right.
But, I mean, he got the gate open for Tony Pollard to burst through more than one occasion. So I'm interested to see how that comes up. But,
and I have to say big shout out to Peters for telling Smith to put his helmet on when that fight was happening. You could see he was like, get your helmet back on.
Yeah, and that's wise, not to like, we prepare for battle, put your helmet on, but more so, dude, if something goes awry, you're going to catch a helmet in the dome, and next thing you know, you're in concussion protocol, and next thing you know, you miss a week or two, and so
right.
That's the wisdom that's the wisdom that comes with a guy like Jason Peters, and yes, you need more than just that from a gameplay standpoint. And I'm also interested in how acclimated they're getting him, what his ramp-up period is actually, because 14 snaps at a position I don't know if he's ever actually played guard. I think that I saw a statistic that he played one snap at left guard in his whole career.
Wow.
And outside of that, you're really banking on him just having lived half of his life in the NFL. So he just kind of knows the ins and outs of anything on that side of the ball.
That, and he's there because I don't think Tyron Smith's been around. And we were all like, oh, Tyler Smith's going to get a chance to learn from Tyron and all that. Well, I don't know if he's coming into practices or if he's just going to rehab or if he's even at the position where he's getting to rehab yet. So to have Peters there in that role, I think is fantastic.
And I wonder what we see of him next week against Washington. Because, I mean, like I said, Farniok's he's not getting it done. I think that he can be a good depth piece if you need a guy to come in and finish out a game because a guy got hurt, or play a couple of games because a guy is out for a couple of weeks. Like, I think that's pretty much who he's going to be as a player in the NFL, which is okay. I mean, for a 7th round pick, it's better than not being in the league.
Right.
I mean,
right.
But for a 7th round pick right now, I think a little too much is on him at this point in time. And whereas we had that conversation, do you move Tyler Smith inside and let the 20-year left tackle play left tackle? Or do you try to teach an old dog a new trick? And I think that the conclusion has pretty much come down to Tyler Smith is your guy at left tackle. The future is now. And really all you're asking out of Jason Peters is to be better than Matt Farniok or be better than Connor McGovern, which neither is really that much to ask from Jason Peters right now.
Right. And it shout out to Terrence Steele.
Yes.
Good game. Hopefully he's coming along, and it's nice to not have to worry about both sides of the line right now. So, but yeah, no, with this offensive line for the Commanders, I'm going to say this, and this is just from seeing some of Tyler Heineke's play. I want Carson Wentz to stay healthy. I don't think I want to see Tyler Heinicke, because he will run the ball. He will go mobile, where you said we'll have the little statue Carson Wentz back there.
Yeah. Wentz is an athletic guy. It's just the mental makeup for Carson Wentz. That's been the MO since he kind of started getting hurt. Their big Super Bowl run with the Eagles, and then he goes down and Nick Foles finishes it out, and Carson Wentz has not been the same since.
Right.
Okay. I mean, we saw it with Indianapolis last year. We saw it at the end of his Eagles career, and we've seen it in the early goings here with Washington. We've seen the good number 2 overall Carson Wentz that threw 4 touchdowns in a game. I think that was week 1 for the Commanders. And then we've seen what we just saw on Sunday, where he just sits back there and lets the pressure get to him. knowing you don't have a very good offensive line, knowing you have to get the ball out quick. He's just not doing it. And I don't know if that's the yips. I don't know if it's because he's not seeing the field. I don't know why, but that's who Carson Wentz is. So as long as he doesn't have the type of game where he reverts back to 2017 weeks 1 through 14 or whatever it was.
Right before the injury.
Yeah, which if he was going to, then he would have already, I think. I don't see why this defense can't come out and, I mean, I would expect the first defensive score of the season for the Cowboys against Washington.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree to that. And it's so funny is that, and I know they have Terry McLaurin on there, and Antonio Gibson can do some damage and stuff like that. But from everything I've watched, you know, the offensive line's so bad that nothing can develop to let them really make any great plays. So it's kind of been boring looking at their offensive side of the ball.
I mean, I guess it depends on who you are, because if I'm a fan of the opponent, that's not boring.
Right. No, I get it. I get it.
I'm having a great time. I want to party here, you know, but
well, maybe I shouldn't say so boring. I should say it didn't take me long.
yeah,
I didn't have to spend a lot of time on it.
If you're Washington, then it is boring. It is tiring just, you know, seeing sack after sack after sack. And, you know, I really, really think that Washington's defense still isn't bad, but they've never lived up to what they were supposed to be with that defensive line.
Chase Young's hurt still.
And he stayed hurt.
Right.
I mean,
right.
You know, he had a really great rookie season. He's kind of Saquon on the other side of the ball.
Yeah.
You know, that rookie year was, man, look at this guy. You know, defensive rookie of the year. He's going to be a cornerstone to your franchise. He was a high pick. He was number 1. Saquon, I believe, was number 4 overall. But neither of them, you know, Saquon's having a decent year, including he had a decent game against the Cowboys. He racked up close to 130 total yards and had a touchdown. If you're a fantasy point counter, then you would think that he had a really good game. But it hasn't been put all together. Just like for Chase Young, it hasn't been all put together. You're kind of living off of the potential point where he was drafted and the prospect, and you know, this is what we hope to get out of him one day, but he's got to stay on the field consistently if he's going to be that guy. And that's not the case.
No, not at all.
All right. So a way too early prediction, because of course things are going to change. I mean, you look at the final 24 hours between the Cowboys and Giants. We went from Michael Gallup is playing and Thibodeau and Ojulari are not.
Right.
To vice versa. So things will change, but we'll give you a way too early in the week prediction between the Cowboys and Washington.
Exactly. And, you know, so having Gallup back, looking at, they have Smith Williams, their edge, that's questionable, and William Jackson III on defense as questionable. So I don't see that there can be a whole lot that changes with them that's going to make a big change on our predictions. So they might be too early, but they might be pretty solid. And this one's not going to be close, kids. I'm going 42-6. Done.
40 burgers?
We're going 40 burger on this one. It's done. I'm doing it.
Camber wants the heat because you know what's going to happen if the Cowboys put up 40 points.
I get it. And yes, the which district is that?
I don't know. You'll have to.
But they're going to come out, and now we have the Romo Dak controversy and da 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 da. But I just feel like we can run the ball on this defense. I feel like we can pass against this defense. think they're riding the high, and I'm gonna say, yeah, we're just gonna go crazy. It's Washington. I mean, they've been bad, so yeah, I'm going there.
All right. So, man, 40 on
Doing
the
it.
board.
Why not?
Hey,
What? This is
what-
the game to try and say it. Okay.
you're not wrong.
Look.
And not only that, but we agreed that this could be the game where the Dallas Cowboys put up a defensive touchdown.
Right.
What
Yes.
if?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, we can do it in all three different ways.
What
Who knows?
if?
Turpin might take one to the house.
It's exactly where I was going. What if you get a defensive score and a special team score?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And
yeah.
not only that, but I just don't think Washington, I don't think offensively they're going to be able to get to the Dallas Cowboys defense consistently. And so I'm going to go Cowboys 28-17 over Washington.
You're
28
a much
to 17.
nicer person I am. You're a much nicer person.
I hate being told that. It's been a lifetime of being told that.
I'm sorry.
Which isn't a bad thing. I mean, it's
No,
just
it's not.
I get it. I'll open the
Yeah.
door for you. I understand.
I just have this feeling this game is going to be one of those.
A whooping.
Yeah. Like if they're showing it in another area, they're going to switch it to a different game because
I'm glad I third party streamed the games then, because I don't
Right.
look when the Dallas Cowboys are blowing out an opponent. I want to see the final kneel down, baby. I want to see the
Mhm.
whole entire thing. That
Right.
that's when I really enjoy it. Is whenever I don't turn that game off early, by no
Right.
means.
Yeah.
But I don't
The-
turn off
I
the
was-
the other way either.
Yeah, I was in Washington for I was up in Seattle for the Dallas, I believe, Atlanta game. And I went to a bar to watch it because, they were the ones that were going to have it. And I'm watching it, and all of a sudden they switched it. And they were like, no, they just switched the coverage because you guys are blowing them out so bad. And so I think LP found me a link on YouTube.
LP is that dude.
He is
LP.
that dude.
All right. That's going to wrap it up today. Midday Due Diligence. We appreciate you guys checking in. Be sure that you like and subscribe on YouTube. Pick Six Sports. Give it a share. Share it around Cowboys Nation. Get more people involved. We love having you guys in here, talking to you in the chat, of course. Camber, do you have any final thoughts?
They could probably said more than I should, huh? I'm good.
Don't we always?
Yeah, no, but do catch me and Mass at 1:45 on this Thursday for Midday with Cam and Mass. We'll have a little bit more updates, I guess, for stuff we haven't found out now.
There you go. You guys have a great Tuesday and go Cowboys.